are seasons when peace feels like a distant dream, when the weight of uncertainty presses in from every side, and your heart can't seem to find rest. Not in people, not in answers, not even in sleep. It's in these moments that the presence of God becomes more than a concept. It becomes oxygen. And nowhere does that truth speak more clearly than in the Psalms. Written in caves, in conflict, in confusion, the Psalms aren't polished prayers. They are cries, honest, raw, desperate cries from people who were crushed and yet still believed, who were surrounded but still turned their eyes to heaven. The kind of peace they found wasn't circumstantial. It didn't come from the world. It came from the presence of the Lord. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. David didn't say he avoided the valley. He walked through it, with fear around him, with sorrow inside him, but still, no fear within. Why? Because you are with me. That one truth changed the whole story. When God is near, peace isn't about what's happening. It's about who's holding you. That's the kind of peace you don't have to fight for. It comes to those who rest in Him, not in control. And the Psalms, like a steady whisper, remind us that God's presence isn't seasonal. It's constant. He is closer than the chaos, louder than the fear, stronger than the storm. Peace in God's presence doesn't mean escape from pain. It means refuge within it. The Psalms show us that peace isn't pretending everything is okay. It's knowing that even when it's not, God is. David poured out his fears, frustrations, doubts, and failures before the Lord, and still found rest. Not because the battle was over, but because he no longer fought alone. You don't need the storm to stop for peace to begin. You need to remember who sits above it. Psalm 46 says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Not a distant help, not a delayed response, a very present help, right here, right now, in the middle of your mess. That's where peace lives. Sometimes the hardest part of finding peace is slowing down long enough to feel it. We're surrounded by noise, distractions, pressure to keep going, pretending, producing, proving. But God doesn't speak through chaos. He speaks through stillness. That's why the Psalms invite us again and again to be still and know. Peace doesn't come from doing more. It comes from knowing more, knowing He is God. The truth is, you don't need perfect faith to enter God's presence. You just need a real heart, a tired heart, an honest one. The Psalms aren't reserved for the strong. They're written for the broken. For those who are worn down by the day and worn out by the fight, and still choose to whisper, I trust you. In the middle of your hardest nights, when no one sees your tears, and even your prayers feel quiet, God is not far. He is not waiting for you to clean yourself up or gather the right words. He's already near. Psalm 34 reminds us, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. That closeness is not earned, it's promised. Peace begins not when the pain ends, but when His presence is recognized. And that's what the Psalms do. They don't deny the darkness, they invite God into it. They don't fix the pain, they anchor the heart. You don't have to run from your feelings to find comfort. You just have to run to Him with them. When David said, Why are you downcast, O my soul? He wasn't hiding his despair. He was confronting it. And then he answered it. Put your hope in God. That shift didn't require the situation to change, only the direction of his focus. That's how peace enters. Not through changed circumstances, but through changed perspective. The Psalms give us language when we have none. They give us permission to grieve, to question, to cry out. And still, they lead us gently back to trust. Because that's what peace is. Not the absence of emotion, but the return to presence. If this stirred something in you, subscribe and turn on the bell, not just to follow a channel, but to walk a journey of faith, one truth at a time. Peace doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't always feel like a wave of emotion or a sudden breakthrough. Sometimes it's subtle, a quiet strength in the background of your fear, a soft stillness beneath the noise, a whisper that says, "I'm still here." That's the kind of peace the Psalms point to. Peace that holds you, even when everything else slips through your fingers. In Psalm 91, we're told that those who dwell in the secret place of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Not visit, not pass by. Dwell. That means staying, settling, making His presence your home. You weren't meant to treat peace like a weekend escape. It's meant to be your daily atmosphere, not found in places, but in Him. When you begin to dwell, you stop depending on external calm to feel internal rest. That's when peace becomes unshakable, because it's no longer tied to what's happening, but to who is with you. That's the shift. That's the foundation. And it's stronger than any storm that might come. Peace in the presence of God isn't a passive experience. It's a daily choice, a returning, a surrender. You come back to Him over and over, not because He left, but because life tries to pull you away. The Psalms don't just bring peace, they train your heart to stay there. It's in the repetition that peace deepens, not in loud declarations, but in quiet returns. That's why the Psalms so often repeat phrases, not because God needs reminders, but because we do. His mercy endures forever. The Lord is my shepherd. I will not fear. These aren't just poetic lines. They're anchors, truth spoken again and again until the storm inside you starts to still. The soul doesn't calm because the world got quiet. It calms because the word got louder. And in those verses, whispered or read in the dim light of an early morning or a sleepless night, something begins to shift. Worry starts to lose its grip, pressure softens, and peace, almost unnoticed, takes its place. This is why the Psalms are more than scripture. They are soundtracks for the soul. They sing when you can't. They hold you when you can't hold yourself. They wrap your fears in the promises of God and remind you that He is both your refuge and your strength. Not just one or the other, both. You were never meant to be your own source of peace. You were never designed to carry it all. The presence of God is not a last resort. It is your inheritance, and the Psalms guide you back into it like a well-worn path, one you can return to again and again, and still find rest waiting. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not moving mountains, but resting beside them, letting go of the fight to understand everything, releasing the need to control outcomes. That's where peace meets you. Not when everything is fixed, but when you decide to stop fixing yourself long enough to feel His nearness. Psalm 23 doesn't promise a life without valleys. It promises presence in the middle of them. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Even when fear surrounds you, He sits you down. He feeds your soul. He anoints your head with oil. He reminds you that chaos is never king. He is. In those quiet moments, where it's just you and the Word, and a breath you didn't think you could take, peace becomes personal. Not an idea, not a concept, but a felt reality. It softens your pace. It slows your thoughts It steadies your spirit. And suddenly, you're not escaping your life. You're finally in it, fully, with Him. This is what the Psalms invite you to. Not just comfort, but communion. Not just quiet, but closeness. Not just words, but a way of being held. Because in His presence, you are not expected to be more. You are free to be exactly as you are. That is where healing begins. So many chase peace like it's somewhere far off, in a better job, a healed body, a fixed situation, a quieter season. But real peace doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. It shows up in the middle of imperfection, in the ache, in the unknown. That's why the Psalms never promise escape. They promise presence. When David wrote, "You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance," he wasn't living in ease. He was choosing refuge. And you can too. Peace isn't passive. It's an act of defiance against fear. It's the decision to trust, even when everything in you wants to run. If you return to the Psalms again and again, you'll find the same thread woven through every cry, every praise, every plea. God is near. Not because you did everything right, not because you're strong enough, but because He's faithful. And peace is what He brings with Him. So breathe. Slow down. Come back to stillness. You were never created to carry chaos. You were created to rest in the arms of the One who made you. And when you do, the storm may still rage, but it will not shake you. Because peace isn't found in the absence of trouble, but in the presence of God. And now ask yourself this: if everything around you stayed the same, but your heart stayed at peace, would that be enough?